Hi everyone, and welcome to the Denali Payroll Seminar presented by Cougar Mountain Software. My name is Jeremy Beislein, and I am a trainer with Cougar Mountain Software. I will be the one presenting this seminar today. What we're going to talk about is the features and functionality of Denali Payroll, and just give a basic overview. We're going to start with introductions to the payroll. Then we'll go into customizing the Denali Payroll module for your use, for those of you using Denali Payroll. We'll go into the employee setup and maintenance, an overview of that. Then an overview of running the payroll processing and reporting for when you actually do payroll each payday. We'll do an overview of the quarterly and annual payroll tax forms, and then we'll end it with a wrap-up. Okay, so we'll get started here with the Denali Payroll overview. So Cougar Mountain Denali Payroll, it's the payroll module in the Denali line of Cougar Mountain Software. It's the easy and simple way to process your payroll transactions for your organization. And we'll go ahead and switch over to the payroll module for now. This is the front screen of the Denali Payroll system. When you set up Denali Payroll, the first thing you do is you go through a setup step where you're setting up your payroll module. The module preferences here, you can access that through the link here, and you just select the basic settings for your organization of how you want to set up the payroll module. You have several options here. You can select different check formats. You can select the last check printed and the last direct deposit stub printed, default garnishments, and so forth. If you have other Denali modules, you want to set your integration settings here so that the payroll module will be linked to the other Denali modules that you may have. You definitely want the integration for General Ledger to be turned on if you have the General Ledger module. One of the options you can also select is a report-only option if you do not have General Ledger from Denali. You can still get a posting report for when you do your payroll transactions, giving you a report showing what General Ledger accounts are affected. You set up direct deposit information. Denali is fully compatible with direct deposit systems with most banks. You just set up your direct deposit information here. You can also set up user-defined fields to customize your employee setup as needed, and print options for how you print reports, checks, and so forth in your system. And once you get the settings taken care of, you just move on to setting up your department codes. Now, what is a department code in Denali Payroll? Department codes are a way that you can break up your payroll expenses by departments or by programs. If you're a nonprofit organization, you can break up your payroll expenses by different programs or funding sources as well through your fund accounting system. With Denali Payroll, you have all of those features to designate different departments or programs that you want to break up your payroll expenses to. What's great about that is you can have several departments that I've got here in my system. I've got several different departments that I've set up that you can set up in your system as well. And then you select your General Ledger expense accounts that your payroll expenses will be posted to for this department or program or fund. Then you can pay your employees across multiple departments or funds, and Denali automatically tracks the accounting for you across the different expense accounts based on the department settings. You can also designate your tax expense accounts for the company portion of payroll taxes that you will be incurring when you run payroll. You can also designate specific benefit expense accounts for company benefits you pay out to your employees by department. The next thing you would do is you would set up tax codes in the Denali Payroll module. Your tax codes basically allows Denali Payroll to automatically calculate your payroll taxes based on the tax code settings. Now with Denali Payroll, you also receive the tax update service if you are signed up for the software assurance program that we have with our payroll system. I know that when you purchase the program, they do have a limited time that you get that service for free for the first the time that you're using the software, and you can renew that service as needed. The tax updates are very quickly updated just by clicking the tax update button there, and then you would select a specific tax code that you want to update for your system. And when you click update, the system automatically runs the update for you and gets you the most up-to-date tax information for your payroll system. Now, when you bring up the tax code, you can actually see the tax percentages that the system updated for you, or you do have the option in Denali to manually change your percentages as needed on any tax codes. Now, of course, we don't recommend changing that from what's updated because these are the federal rates for these different tax types. The withholding tax, the rates are done through the withholding table. And if you go to the IRS Schedule E or Circular E, or the IRS website to bring up the withholding tables, you would see the withholding table for 2016 would match what it shows here in Denali for the annual amounts. But these tax tables and these tax rates are automatically updated, so you don't really have to worry about those. The same with the state tax codes. Let's see, we are in the state of Idaho here, so if I select the state of Idaho, I bring up my state tax code amounts, and there's my state withholding table for Idaho state tax. And of course, federal and state, you have the different options of single or married, and you have a different table for each of those options. So the system can calculate the tax correctly as needed. What's great about Denali is these settings are customizable, and you can manually adjust those, or you can let the system use the default automatic settings. With the tax codes, you can use the automatic update option to get the correct tax rates for you. Now, the second step is to set up your benefits and deductions for your employees. Any other deductions that are not tax deductions, you would set those up here. Very simple to set up a benefit deduction. Here's a good example of a 401k deduction. You can set up, if you provide a 401k plan for your employees to pay into, you can set up a payroll deduction out of their paycheck to pull out of their paycheck and contribute to their plan, to their account. You would set that up here. You can set other deductions up as needed. Another example of a deduction would be, let's see what we got here, healthcare deductions that I'm looking for. There we go, healthcare insurance. So this is a healthcare insurance deduction. This is a fixed amount, so it's a flat dollar amount for each employee, and you would designate the amount per employee on the employee set. With the deductions, you can also make this a pre-tax deduction by applying a shelter code in this case. A shelter code basically allows you to select what tax codes you are sheltering this deduction from, and the individual tax amounts in those tax codes that you're sheltering. Now, most companies set up, you're only going to have, 2 or 3 tax codes. Because this is our demonstration, we have many different tax codes that we're showing here. So the system does calculate the taxes correctly for the deductions as well when you're applying the different setup there. Great options that you have there for payroll tax deductions. Benefits are set up the same way for company paid benefits. A good example of a company paid benefit is health insurance that the company pays. So you would set that up as a benefit. Now, a benefit does not come out of the employee's gross pay. It's not a deduction. This is an expense that the company pays on behalf of the employee. But the company does not deduct this expense out of their pay. So for health insurance, you may have both. Most companies do, where the company pays a percentage of the premium, and then the employee has a deduction to pay a percentage of their premium as well for the same health plan. The shelter codes, we just covered that, so you can access those here. You can use a shelter code for any purpose and set it up for anything that you need to shelter from taxes in the Denali payroll setup. The lead codes are set up to calculate, we skipped garnishments. We want to talk about garnishments. Garnishments in Denali payroll, it's a very simple setup. You can set up a garnishment to, see if I got one here. Yeah, there we go. Kentucky Child Services. Okay, so with garnishments, they're set up like any other deduction, but the setting is a little different it calculates it based on the portion of net disposable income. And we'll get into the details of the garnishment setup when we get to the employee setup. But Denali Payroll does have the features to apply garnishment as needed to your employees. So if you get served a garnishment that you need to process out of your employee's check, you can do that. Okay, so before we get into the employee setup, we'll talk a little bit about setting up for paid vacation, paid time off, paid sick leave, things like that. You can set all of that up here in Denali as well, and you can set it up to accrue so many hours of paid time per pay period, or you can base it on how many hours that they work. So if the employee works 40 hours, they accrue so many hours of paid time off for each hour that they work. Typically, that's normal for a full-time employee, but a lot of companies like to set it up for their part-time employees to also accrue paid vacation as well, just at a lower rate. So the rate may be the same per unit or per hour, but if they only work 25 hours, they won't accrue as many paid vacation hours. So you can set that up either way. You can also have it set up to accrue monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual for like paid holidays, things like that. Lots of great features that you can set up with the paid vacation, paid time off. The status code's real simple. You've got 4 status types, and this basically tells Denali how the employee will be treated when it comes time to run their payroll. If the employee is inactive or terminated, the system does not generate a paycheck for that employee during that payroll. So now we talk about the employee setup, and the first thing we look at is the history. Employee history is a great feature in Denali to get just a snapshot view of an employee's history for their year-to-date information right there. But before we go to the history under year-to-date summary, the setup, you would fill out the information under the General tab for each employee. You start at the top here with their employee number, name, social security number, filing status. Then you fill in their address, dates, and the information specific to the employee. Then, each one of these tabs takes you to the different parts of the employee setup, as you can see there. The history is just a snapshot view, like I was saying, of each paycheck year to date. This is the current payroll year, so you have the history of everything in the current year. And at the bottom, you have the totals. These totals represent taxable wages, Social Security wages, Medicare wages, and federal tax withholding, Social Security and Medicare tax withholding, which is what you see in boxes 1 through 6 on the W-2 form at the end of the year. So year to date, that's what you're going to see. These numbers automatically update every time you run payroll and process another payroll check for each employee. Then when setting up employee pay rates, the system is designed to set up your employees to where you can have multiple pay rates for the different types of work or the different positions that the employee may be involved in with your organization. Another thing that's great about this is you can set the department or program code based on the pay rate, which allows you to pay an employee across multiple departments or program codes, which remember is how the payroll system expenses out your payroll through your general ledger. It's all through the department code setup or the program code setup. Great feature for nonprofits. If you've got multiple funding sources you're tracking separately and you need to expense your employees' pay across multiple funds, then that's what your program codes and payroll would be designed for. And you would set those up under the employee setup here. For hourly pay rates, you set up the regular hourly rate for each pay rate that they get paid. You also select which state and local tax codes that are applicable to this pay rate, which is a great feature in Denali Payroll to allow you to process multi-state payroll. You may have an employee that's working in multiple states, and they may need to be paid and taxed accordingly based on which state they are working in. With Denali Payroll, you've got that option to take care of that for you. And then you apply the tax codes down here with the exemptions and any other information that needs to be applied to determine how the taxes will be calculated for different tax codes. If you put default units in on an hourly pay rate, the system will automatically pay that employee that many hours of pay every pay period for each pay rate as needed. So if we did 20 hours on each of these pay rates for this employee, for example, then this employee would get 80 hours for a 2-week pay period automatically every time we run payroll, and split across these 4 different departments or different pay rates as needed. And this is where it's a great feature when you're using different departments that you're paying out of. So maybe, let's see if I got a construction department. Nope, I don't. Okay. So if we use regular, put that in administration, select that, and we'll just leave those departments. But you can set up these different departments as needed and pay the employees across the different departments according to how you need it to be set up. Now, anything you fill in here, these are all defaults. Of course, when you process payroll, you can change the default amounts to whatever the amounts are at the time you process payroll. But by putting in the defaults, if they work the same hours, and especially for salary employees, then, let's see if I can find a salary employee here. Right there. So we have a salary employee here. They're all under one pay rate, which is fine. If you need to split it up across multiple pay, you can. You put in a default salary amount, the system knows how much to pay this employee for every paycheck. So now we don't have to worry about putting in time or hours for this employee unless we want to. So we can do it if we want to, but we don't have to. The benefits and deductions, we've already set up the codes for the payroll module that we're going to be using. Now here's where you apply those codes to each employee. Each of the benefits and deductions is needed to the employee, and you put in the amounts. For example, our employee here has a 401k plan that they're partaking in, and the company actually pays a percentage of that as well as a benefit. So it's a company match is what we have labeled that as. So now when I bring up the information for this employee has elected to put 5% of their pay, their gross pay, into their 401k plan. And our company policy is we will match half of what they put in up to whatever percentage you decide to put that at. So half of 5 is 2.5. So in this case, the benefit for this employee would be 2.5%. So the company will match that for this employee. This employee is also signed up for the health insurance program. And this one was set up as a fixed dollar amount, not as a percentage. So there's an example of where you put the dollar amount in for the benefit, and then we go to the deduction, and there's the dollar amount that is deducted out of the employee's pay for the health insurance deduction. So remember, the benefit is not deducted, it's just an expense that the company pays on behalf of the employee. The deduction is actually deducted out of their gross pay. The leave, this is where you would set up the different, let's go back one, previous. The leave is where you would set up the different leave pay, like holiday pay, paid time off, vacation. This is where you apply those different leave codes that you set up to the employee set. And then the system automatically tracks what they've accrued, what they are currently accruing at, and what they have remaining on each of these different paid leave types, the hours that they have accrued that they have remaining and ready to go. The direct deposit, Denali has full direct deposit capabilities for you to process your payroll and have the net pay be directly deposited into the employee's bank account. In the module preferences, the original setup of the Denali payroll, you set up the direct deposit information particular to your company based on what your bank gives you to set up your direct deposit file. And then you come into the employee setup here and you put in the employee's bank accounts, and I use the word plural on that, bank accounts, to pay the employee's paycheck into. Basically, you would put in their employee bank account, if I double click on this one, the employee's bank account number, the employee's routing number, a description for that bank account, whether it's a checking, savings, or a savings account, and then the status of that account is active. Now, the reason I said account is because Denali is fully capable of taking their net pay and splitting it across multiple accounts. So we have this employee set up for 50% of their pay to go into their checking, 25% goes into their house payment account, 10% into savings, and 15% into an investment account they've set up. All of this is handled automatically when you process the payroll and process the direct deposit transaction. Denali can take their net pay and split it across these 4 accounts in this example under these percentages as needed. You can also set it up to pay a fixed amount into an account and then the remaining check into another account, whatever is left over after the fixed amount instead of a percentage. So you could set that up for $1 instead of a percentage, $1. If your bank requires you to send a pre-note before you process the direct deposits, before you begin processing direct deposits, then Denali supports that as well, but it's not required unless the bank requires it. If the employee no longer wants to deposit into this particular account, you just set this account to inactive, and it stops the direct deposit from going into that account. Okay, so we talked about the deductions and paid vacation. One of the great features you have with Denali as well is in the employee account setup, you can put any kind of notes about an employee that you need to, any kind of status change notes. If they get a promotion, you want to notate the promotion, you use the note field here. This field is pretty much unlimited. You can type what you need to here, and then you save the information. It saves those notes in the employee setup. You can also put a timestamp on each note that you're typing just by clicking this button here, and then you can type your note here. You also have a search option. If you've got, hundreds and hundreds of notes in here, you can search for a specific text string in your notes by clicking the button. And another great feature we have that I was showing you in my presentation is the attachments. Personal items is how we got it labeled. What's great about this is under attachments, you can put whatever computer file that you want to and attach it to the employee's record. Now this is great for like photos of the employee. That's what my presentation is showing there. Or more importantly, documentation regarding their payroll, such as their W-4 form or their I-9 form. Any of those documents that you may have saved as a PDF or scanned into your system, you can attach those to the employee file here. And that way, you can just simply select the document anytime you need to bring that up or print a copy of it, and it's there. And then if you have set up user-defined fields to put information in about employees that we don't have a field for already in here, then you would put that information here under the user-defined. Okay, so that's our payroll setup for the employees. We set up the payroll module for your business, and any maintenance tasks, any changes that need to be made is all done through these links here. Employee setup is all done here. All of your employees are just set up here in the employee records. And when you click to find, you have a list of all the employees you can bring up here. Now, once everything's set up, Denali Payroll is designed to simplify the payroll processing. That's what we have done here with our Denali Payroll module, to make it easy to run your payroll every 2 weeks or every week or however often you run payroll. And we designed this navigation system here on your icon to start here with the first step and just follow the arrows for each step of your payroll process until you finish it by posting payroll transactions at the end. So every payday, or a couple of days or 3 days before payday, you would process the payroll. If you're going to run direct deposits, then we always recommend 2 or 3 days before payday so that the bank has time to process the direct deposit transactions and get the payroll in there into their bank account on payday as needed. So let me make sure I'm starting with a clean payroll batch here. I'm going to clear out my batch to start over on a clean payroll batch. So if my payday is Friday, April 29th, today is actually Wednesday, April 27th, I can see down here on my clock. So if I'm going to run payroll for Friday, April 29th, I start by selecting this option here, and I can show you how simple it is to run payroll in Denali. We start by putting in the payroll description, pay for period ending. What do you think the pay period ends? If payday's on the 29th, let's say the pay period ends on the 23rd. I'm going to type that into the description. Now you can type whatever you want for your description. This description field is just basically whatever you want to put in here of what it is we're paying out, why we're running this payroll, basically. Or you could leave it blank if you don't want to put anything in there. I always recommend putting something there to identify each payroll run. If you want something to print on the check memo line on the check itself, you would also type that here on the check comment. I like to just copy and paste my description to my check comment so that it prints on the paycheck as well. If I'm running biweekly payrolls, this could either be pay period 1, 2, or 3. If it's a weekly payroll, it could be anywhere from 1 to 5. Semi-monthly, it'll be pay period 1 or 2. Or monthly, you probably just have pay period 1. Let's see, how many payrolls did we run in April? If the payday is the 29th, that means the previous one was on the 15th, which the previous one to that was on the 1st. So this would actually be my third pay period. This is my third paycheck for the month of April. So here's my check date, here's my pay period end date, and if I have general ledger integration turned on and all of my payroll transactions are posting to my Denali general ledger system, then what day do I want to expense this payroll? That's the day you select here for the general ledger expense day. Most people, it's the same day you pay it out on the 29th. However, for some people, it might be a different day. They might want to have it expensed out on the last day of the pay period instead. Now, before processing payroll, you also have the option to enter your time under the daily unit system in Denali. One of the great features about Denali Payroll is if you have a time card system that is tracking your daily units, you can set that up to have the daily hours imported, all of the employees' time imported through your time card system. And we actually have a partnership with T-Sheets, which is a time tracking system, a company that does a time tracking system that's online, a cloud-based system where your employees can clock in and out of when they come in and out, come in or go home for work every day. They can just go onto their computer and clock in, and then when they leave, they go on and clock out. They even have a system with their phones where you can set it up on your smartphone to clock in and out as needed. And Denali is fully compatible with the T-Sheet system. Or you can enter the units manually here, and when you go here, this is just filling out the employee's time card for each day. You basically put in their hours each day. This step is not required, but it is a way you can track their hours on a daily basis directly here in the Denali system. Now, if you've done that, the system will automatically include those hours when you go to process payroll here in the enter payroll date. So I'll put my descriptions back in. I'll put my pay period information back in. Check date is the 29th. Oops, I'm too far. And my pay period end date is the 23rd. My expense date is the 29th. If the time is being tracked on a daily basis, Denali will automatically expense the time based on the day they worked. And it will accrue that expense until you pay it out on the check date through your wages payable liability account in your general ledger. So for those of you accountants, that might be a more accurate way for you to keep track of your payroll expenses and actually expense out your payroll based on the days they work rather than the day you pay it out, which may be a more accurate system for most people. Then you can select to pay only hourly employees, only salary paid employees, or only employees that have a combined hourly and salary pay rate, or we're going to pay all employees in this case. Now this will pay all active employees. Any terminated or inactive employees do not get included when we process payroll. Now I've got my box checked here to include my daily units that I was showing you when you enter those time card daily units or import those from your time card system. So by including my daily units, all I do is simply add to grid all of my active employees. If I want to select a range of employees that I want to pay, I can do that here instead of paying all of them, or I can pay by department as well. But we'll just pay all of our active employees, and now as you can see, the hours already came in for my daily units. I don't have to enter hours in, they're already there. Or if there are no hours, it pulled in the default hours that were entered in under their setup. So at this point, your payroll processing is pretty much done. All of their hours are put in, their gross pay is automatically calculated based on their pay rates. Their deductions that they have calculated, that's automatically taken care of. Your taxes are calculated for each payroll, and then there's their net pay. So each employee's information is automatically calculated on the fly just by clicking the Add to Grid. The system generates these paychecks automatically for you. You have a grand total of each column at the bottom to give you a snapshot view of what the total payroll is calculating to be for each column. So this is a great feature in Denali for payroll processing. The setup is where most of the work is done, but you only have to do that once. You set up your employees once in the system, and then just go in there and change their information from time to time as needed. But when you process payroll every 2 weeks or every week, or how often you do it, then the system automatically has the information to process their paychecks. However, if you're not using daily units and you don't have default hours put in, you can still enter the hours in manually by clicking the Edit button here and plugging the hours in here as needed. Regular hours, overtime hours, and so forth. Now, as you can see, this employee has 4 pay rates that we set up. And so if I go through each pay rate, we get 20 hours per pay rate, because that's what we set up on their default, or that may have been what was imported through the daily units. But you can change those. Maybe under the manufacturing pay rate, this employee worked an extra 12 hours overtime. So we'll put 12 hours in, and we'll save that. And now he's going to have 92 hours instead of 80 hours, because the 12 hours was added on. And remember, because I put it in the overtime, it was paying them out at the overtime rate, a time and a half in this case. So you can go in and enter the hours in as needed. The deductions are automatically calculated, but if we need to edit that information, we can go in and edit the deductions as needed. See, this employee has several different benefits and deductions that they're using, but we can edit that information as needed for the ones that we've marked as variable amounts. They may change per paycheck, so we can change that. These others that are grayed out are fixed amounts, so therefore it normally doesn't let me change them. But if I need to, as the payroll manager, I do have the option to still change even the fixed amount ones as needed by selecting the adjust box there. The taxes are automatically calculated. If you need to edit the tax calculation, you can click on the window here and adjust the taxes. Of course, I don't recommend that because you want to make sure the taxes are correct based on the tax table. But there may be a case where you will need to edit the withholding tax rate for like entering year-to-date transactions and so forth. And then you have your net pay, which is a gross pay minus deductions minus taxes is net. So processing payroll is real simple in Denali. Everything is pretty much done for you at this point. And then we just simply click the next button to go to our next step. Now when I click my next button here, it saves the work that I've done in the grid here. I'm going to move this out of the way for a sec. It saves the work I did here, and it just moves on to my next step here. And the next step is to verify the accuracy of the work that I have put in or that the system pulled in automatically through my daily units or defaults. So I verify the accuracy of my work. This is called the transaction edit report. And what this report does is this gives a detailed report of each employee's paycheck. This is a great feature to have because you want to at least look at this report. And I just have it go into my screen here because that way I can look at it on the screen and I can show you guys as well. It shows me each employee's paycheck and all the details of their paycheck right here. So I've got my transaction number 1, my first paycheck in my batch. Here's my check number. It's a direct deposit check. I've got the direct deposits designated by a DD. This is my employee number, employee name, department. This is their default department, but then their pay departments are here. Oops. Or right here in the pay rates. So we see our pay rates here, and it's broken up by 4 different pay rates, and I've got one pay rate going to a whole different department, which means it's going to be expensed out on a different expense line in my general ledger if my department code is set up to do so. Got my check date here. Everything is here like it needs to be for this employee. And see if I can move my little recorder bar out of the way here so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, and so what we have our pay rates, then we have our employee tax deductions here in this section, employer tax expenses for the employer portion of taxes, specifically Medicare and Social Security, then our benefits and deductions. These are the different benefits and deductions that this was applied to this paycheck, other than taxes. And over here we have our summary for the different pay rates, the pay. Total regular pay, total overtime pay, hours and amounts, and then the leave hours that I have remaining under the different leave types that we have. Now, we didn't do any leave pay on this check, but we accrued leave hours, and this is the total leave hours I have accrued for this employee at this time. Down here, I have the gross earnings, total deductions, net pay, and total leave hours on my report here. So each employee, I've told it to run this report as a separate page for each employee, so it doesn't mix them all up. And then I can go to the next one here. At the end of my report, I have my totals. So I back up, this is my last employee right here, and then I go to the last page on my report, and this is my totals for each batch. Here's my department codes, which is my expense accounts in general ledger. So these are the different gross pay expenses, regular time, overtime, any other time, any leave time, or any additional pay that we're paying out under these different departments for this payroll batch. Down here I have my taxes, all of my taxes based on the different states, and then my federal. My federal is right down there in the middle because it's alphabetized, FED in the tax code. Most people that use Denali Payroll, they're only going to have the federal and maybe one or two state tax codes. But because this is the demonstration, it's split across multiple states, and we even have two different tax codes in the same state, California specifically here. So I've got three for New York right there. One of them is a local tax code for New York City. Got two for Oregon, which we have there. All right, so as you can see, you can set up Denali to calculate taxes correctly as needed for all of the different tax types. Even the state of Washington, which we all know does not have an income tax, but we set up a tax code for Washington to calculate unemployment tax for the state unemployment as needed. Then down here at the bottom we have check summary, deductions, benefits. We have our total gross, deductions, benefits, additions, garnishments, and then we split up the total net pay by direct deposit or by regular paper checks, and a grand total of all net pay there. So once we have this report here to verify that our payroll is accurate, or if you just need a report that you want to put in your files for each payroll run, this is the perfect report for that because it has all of the detailed paycheck information for each employee with all of the payroll totals at the end for that payroll run. We go to our next step, and this is where we print our paychecks on the next step. Now, when you print paychecks, you're going to run it in two print passes. The first one is to print your checks. You put the first check number here if it doesn't fill in automatically for you. And then the system automatically assigns the check numbers as you're printing. Once you've printed your paychecks, then you print your direct deposit stubs. The direct deposit stubs can be printed on plain paper or any direct deposit form that you may be using to print this on. So you'll do two print jobs. The first one is the regular checks. You click OK to print those. Let me go ahead and click OK. I'm just going to my XPS document writer as my printer, so we're OK with that here. And the system starts printing your paychecks beginning with this check number here. You just want to make sure that the first check number you put in here is the actual check number that you put into the printer. Is the first one that you're putting into the printer. So just because I told it to save it as an XPS document instead of actually printing it, I'm just going to cancel that. Then I print my direct deposit stubs as well. Once I print out my paychecks and stubs, I go to my check register, and you can run this as a detailed register or a condensed register. And if I bring up my presentation, let's see if I can catch up here. There we go, my check register report. There's an example of the detailed check register. You've got your employee number, employee name, the program or department that they're getting paid under, check number, check date, gross pay, total taxes, deductions, and net pay. and the next employee. You'll see that on the check register report. You can also run this report in condensed, which is a single line report, or, make sure I got the right dates on here. The condensed report is a single line report, so each employee's paycheck is just listed as a single line on the report. So this might be a simpler check register report if you don't want all the detailed information. And then you have your total for all checks at the bottom here. You can also run this report by check number, and that's a nice way to run it if you want to separate out your paper checks for your direct deposits on the report. So now we have all of our paper checks first, and then our direct deposits listed next, because we're organizing this by check number instead of by employee number. And that is your check register report that you can use to process the paychecks into your check register system. And you would take that report and enter those checks into your check register system. Or if you have the Denali Bank Reconciliation module, which is the Denali's check register system, Denali will automatically post those checks to the bank rec for you, so you don't have to enter those in. Next, we go to our pre-posting reports. These are the detailed reports to show up all of the benefits, the deductions, the additions, and all the different items in addition to taxes. So the first report is our additions report. So under this addition code, commission, we had one employee that received $100. An addition is where you add additional pay to the employee's paycheck. Here we have a disability non-taxable, $1. Yeah, I wonder what happened there. And another one here, taxable here for this one. But you can put the amount in as needed when you're processing the payroll. We have mileage reimbursement. So I've got 4 employees set up for mileage reimbursement. One of them received $1, 2 of them received nothing, one of them received $125. Total additions, $349. Next page, we see our benefits report. These are all the employee benefits for each one of the benefit codes. So for my 401 company match, I've got all of these employees set up for that, and this is the amount of benefit we pay out for them. For my pension plan, I've got 1 employee here. For my dental plan, I've got these employees set up. Health insurance benefit, I've got all these employees set up in the total. A couple other benefits there. Go to the next page. Now our deductions. So each report is going to run based on the type of item that we're talking about, whether it's an addition, a benefit, a deduction, a garnishment. These are my garnishments. And tips. I even have tips set up. Now, in this payroll run, nobody got paid any tips, or we're not tracking any tips for this payroll run. This is great for restaurants or service industries. But these employees are set up to receive tips. But for this payroll run, we didn't enter them, so they're all zeros. So we've gone through the benefits and deductions reports. The next report is our EFTPS tax payment report. So the EFTPS tax payment report, what this is a report of your federal tax payment for this payroll run. Your 941 tax payment, basically. Now this is broken up by employee. Each line is an employee, each employee's portion of the taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and withholding. And then we have our unemployment here as well, which is 940 tax. At the bottom is your total 941 payment to the EFTPS. Social Security, Medicare, withholding, and your grand total, 941 payment. Now you also can do the 940 payment. The reason it's only 63 cents is because we've already demonstrated payrolls all the way out to the end of the year. So we've exceeded the $7,000 threshold for most employees. So the unemployment 940 tax is 0 in this payroll. So you have your total 941 tax, total 940 tax, and then just the grand total for all. And we are just about done with our payroll processing here. The next step is we are going to process the direct deposit distribution. So what happens when you process direct deposit in Denali? I click next, and this is my next step to process my direct deposit. What I want to do is I want to make sure that my effective day is the actual payday, in this case the 29th in this example. And the reason for that is because no matter how early you process this with your bank will not finalize it until the payday, so that the employees don't get paid early. Now, it's up to you. If you want to pay them early, you can process this for the 28th or whatever you decide. But your bank is going to need at least 2, and some banks 3 days in order to process this file. So the effective date needs to be no earlier than the very earliest your bank can get it processed. In this example, it's 2 days. Because today's the 27th, so if we process it for the 29th, we're okay with that. But if I try to process it any earlier than that, say if I want to process it for tomorrow, I get this warning here. No, they didn't give me the warning. Okay, so I must have turned off my warning. So I went ahead and processed it for tomorrow. I'm going to say no, and we're going to back up and process it again so I can do it right. If I do it for today, look at that. It gives it to me for today as well. So there is an option to turn on that warning. It says you must have at least 2 or 3 days, depending on your bank. So we're going to process it for the 29th, the correct day. So I click OK, and this is going to generate a direct deposit file. It's also known as a notcha file. So basically all I did is I just created a data file somewhere on my computer. So where is the data file created? The big question is, this must be open, okay, must be closed. Okay, so if I go here and I go to my direct deposit setup, the data file is saved on my desktop. Look at that. That's where I told it to save the data file. So I'm going to process it. And it doesn't matter how many times you process it, it's just going to override the data file with the latest time you process. So because I've already done it 3 or 4 times, I'm going to do it again. It's just going to recreate that same data file for the right date and override the one that was there on my desktop. And we'll get to that data file in just a sec. But what I want to show you here is the report you get after you process your direct deposit. So you process the direct deposit, and when you run this report, it shows you how the direct deposit was distributed for each employee. So my first employee, John Archer here, his check was broken up into 2 bank accounts. $40 went to this account, and the rest of his check, $1,167, went to the other bank. Eastman also had 2 bank accounts split up in this distribution, and there's his total paycheck right there. Janeway had 4 different bank accounts that we split her check up by. And remember, in the employee setup, that's where you set up these different accounts and how the system will automatically pay it out. And at the bottom, we have total direct deposit payment there. This is going to be the amount withdrawn from your company account to go to all of the employees' bank accounts. So once that direct deposit file is processed, you now have this distribution report that you can run, print out, and file away, and save for your records. But what about that direct deposit file? What do we do with that? So if I switch back to my desktop here, bring up my desktop, you can tell I'm an audit fan here, then there is my direct deposit notcha file. So now to actually process the direct deposits, you simply go online and log into your online bank's cash management system that you've set up with your bank, and you just upload that file through their online cash management system. Some banks have it set up to where you email that file to them instead of uploading it through their online banking system. But you just simply go and upload that file to the online banking system with your bank that they set you up with, and then the bank takes it from there, and they'll go ahead and process those direct deposit payments for you. Okay, now that we've processed direct deposit, which was our final step, we move on to the last step, is to post our payroll. The posting is where it finalizes the payroll for this run and files the paychecks away in the Denali history. It also will post all of your payroll expenses to your general ledger or any other modules you may have integrated. So if I go ahead and click OK, we're going to process the posting. It says, I didn't print my direct deposit stuff. Look at that, because I said to cancel. But that's okay. We don't need the direct deposit stuff. We've already got the information we need on that. We can reprint those anytime. So I'm going to say yes, go ahead and close. Well, it warns you, if you haven't printed your paychecks or your direct deposit stubs, it gives you that warning and it says, wait a minute, we need to first print out our pay stubs before we post. If you forget to do it, or if you decide to post anyway without printing, and then later on the employee comes and says, I need my pay stub, that's okay. With Denali Payroll, you can go back and reprint any pay stub from history as needed. The posting does take a few seconds, especially in my situation, because I've got every Denali accounting module, and I'm going to be posting to 4 different accounting modules here with this payroll batch. So with the Denali Payroll, what it is it's the accounting for your payroll processing. It does all the accounting for you. It keeps track of your payroll for you. And then it also keeps track of the accounting side through your Denali General Ledger, if you also have the Denali General Ledger module. And this is almost done here. Okay, so our posting is just finalizing, and there we go. So now we have the payroll posting report. This right here looks similar to the check register report. Basically, this report is just a single line list of all the paychecks, but this has the gross and the net amount. This is basically what we have posted to the payroll module. All the detailed information for each check was posted along with that we have on our edit report. So this just gives us a single line listing of all the paychecks we just posted to the employees' payroll histories, their year-to-date histories. Okay, our next report we have is our accounts payable posting. Now, Denali has an accounts payable module, of course, to track all your vendors. What we post from payroll to accounts payable is all of our payroll liabilities. So the system will go through all of our payroll vendors, and it will post a bill to that vendor's account in my accounts payable for my payroll liabilities. There's my insurance right there, my medical insurance. For this payroll run, this is my liability posted to the accounts payable module. Now I can simply go into my accounts payable module and select these vendors to pay and have it pay out those liabilities as needed. And the system automatically generates a check to pay out those liabilities. Or you can do an e-payment as well. So now we've got our next one is our bank reconciliation. Denali has a bank rec module that keeps track of your bank account. When you're running payroll, you're writing out paychecks. So we want to make sure that all of our paychecks are automatically posted to my bank account that I'm paying the payroll out. Each paycheck, check number and amount, of course the check date is on there as well. And then here's my memo on the checks. So these are the postings to my bank reconciliation module, with totals right here going for each bank account. So here's my bank account total for my payroll account. If I was running payroll out of multiple bank accounts, I would have a second section with the other bank account that would pay payroll out as needed. Paper checks are posted as checks, direct deposits are posted as deductions. And then I get my grand totals for all bank accounts here at the bottom of this posting. And my final posting report are all of my debits and credits to my general ledger for this payroll. Now I'm running this in detail because I want to have a complete audit trail for every one of my transactions in my general ledger financial records. So each paycheck gets a complete detailed posting to my general ledger. So every GL account that is affected will get a posting for each paycheck. This can provide some pretty substantial posting reports. For example, this is an 11-page posting to my general ledger. I've got 11 pages on this posting report, but that's okay because as an accountant, I want all the detail of each transaction to go to my general ledger so that it is there. And all of the information will be there with all the different GL accounts that it's posted to. So now when I run my financial reports, this payroll is now included in my profit and loss statement, my revenue and expense reports, and my balance sheet reports. Okay, so that's it. That's the payroll processing. With Denali Payroll, you can also run various payroll reports for your payroll history that you need to run. You can run a payroll history report, taxes. You can run taxable wages report, department codes, that's your payroll expenses report, benefit deduction reports. If you're setting up your payroll using projects, you can run those reports. Taxes that are payable. This report is very handy for when you're doing state taxes. So I got my EFTPS report for my federal taxes, but now what do I need to pay for my state taxes on this particular payroll run? I can run this report right here, and it will show me what I need to pay. Oh, I went up to 2017. So if I run it from starting to ending date as my one single payday, I get a taxes payable for just that one payroll. This is a great report to figure out what I need to pay to my other taxes. So it still has my federal, that's on there as well. But I also have my New York, my Alabama, California, all the different taxes that I need to pay to them as well. And it breaks it out by the different tax types for each of those reports. For a lot of states, most people do states on a quarterly basis. So if I'm only running one state, I can put my state code in, and I can run it for just the first quarter or the second quarter or whichever quarter I want to run it for. So now I get a report that shows me my taxes payable to Idaho for the entire quarter. And then I can go ahead and get that paid out. Or you can do it monthly, however you need to do that. So another great feature you have with Denali is you can run your quarterly tax preview report, which gives you kind of a preview of your quarterly taxes, similar to the taxes payable, but it's broken out by the different tax types, such as unemployment tax, withholding tax, or any other state taxes you may have that are applicable to that. You run that report so that you know what to put on your quarterly tax forms, such as your state tax forms or the federal 941 quarterly tax form when you're filing those reports, those tax forms. But I know the big question comes up, well, yeah, but can't Denali just file those forms for me? Sure, let's go ahead and let Denali file the quarterly tax forms for you. With Denali, we have actually partnered with Atrix, which is a tax form processor that takes care of your tax filings for you for payroll taxes. So, and Denali, basically I'm going to say I want to run my quarterly 941 tax report. So I will select 941 taxes there, which would include my Schedule B and also a 941B if needed, if I need to make a payment due. I'm going to run this for first quarter, and we're going to go ahead and process my 941 taxes. Now, because taxes always change and there's always updates on the tax forms themselves, all of the different things that need to happen, the IRS is constantly changing their forms, then the system automatically checks for any updates that the IRS or your state tax agencies may have made or changed before processing those forms. And if there are updates available, it pops up this screen right here. And in this case, yep, I've got updates that are available. Since the last time I updated, we've had some changes with my taxing agencies, so I need to process those updates as well. So I just simply click Automatic Update, and the system takes over and does those updates for me. Now, once the updates are done, then it actually processes your 941 taxes automatically for you, and you can then, at that point, which I will show you here once this update gets done, you can then take that form, print it out, sign it, and mail it off, or there's even an option to e-file. Well, there's a pretty good size update we've got to process here today, isn't there? So this might take a minute. It's been a little while since I've done my tax update, so this will take just a minute or two here. But as you can see, it's all taken care of for you. Denali can handle that for you using the Atrix tax filing system for payroll taxes. And we are just about done here. So update is now complete. So now it's going to launch my 941 tax form. Processing the form. Wait for it. It's almost here. Now, when it processes this form, it already knows what numbers to fill in on the form because all of your data is in there as entered for each paycheck for Denali. So now, the system automatically processes my 941 tax form, as you can see there. All of my information is filled out for me, number of employees for this pay period, total pay, all of the information as needed, taxable Social Security, Medicare, it's all filled out for me. The only thing I have to fill in on this form is my deposits, my quarterly tax deposits for this form. So I fill in my deposits, 5946, and the system takes care of that for me. Now I need to select, am I a monthly depositor or am I a semi-weekly depositor? If I'm a monthly, I'll need to fill in the tax liability, but if I am, Denali fills it in for me. Look at that. But wait a minute, what if I'm not a monthly? What if I'm a semi-weekly? If I'm a semi-weekly, I need a Schedule B. So if I select that, look at that. Schedule B is now complete, right there. And the system automatically puts in my tax liabilities for each pay period on my Schedule B, so I don't have to do anything for that. Now the only thing left is for me to fill in my name, sign the form, and mail it off, which I just printed out to do. Or, like I say, the system has an option to e-file the form as needed. So I do have some missing information. Return because I have an overpayment of 4 cents. Right. My deposit for 4 cents more than my total taxes. And my name, Mr. Payroll. That's my title. And now I can go ahead and process my filing. This is my copy, and then right here I can either print the form or I can e-file the form. But because this is a demonstration, I don't actually have the licensed copy of Atrix installed. So therefore, it's in evaluation mode, so I have to either purchase an Atrix license or I won't be able to print or e-file. So those are my options there. But as you can see, Denali will do your payroll taxes for you. Denali even does the annual year-end payroll taxes, including my W-2 forms. And again, you can process your W-2s and e-file the federal and state copies of your W-2s, so you don't have to mail those off. Atrix even has an option where they will mail the employee copies for you for a very modest fee. It's very, very reasonable. It's usually a lot cheaper than what you would have to pay in paper if you bought the blank forms, bought the paper, printed it out, and bought the stamps and envelopes and did all that yourself. Atrix usually can do that for you cheaper than if you were to do it yourself. So those are your options you have with your tax filings. Okay, so that is the Denali payroll system for Cougar Mountain Denali software. And of course, it's fully integrated with any of the other Denali modules that you may have. So you don't have to worry about processing payroll information with the other modules manually. The system does that for you. If you have any questions or comments and you need additional information, go ahead and give us a call at the number there, 1-800-388-3038. You can also email us to sales@cougarmountain.com. Cougarmountain.com, the mountain is abbreviated if you notice. It's cougarmtn.com. And that is also our website, cougarmtn.com. We also have on our website other webinars and presentations that you can watch and download. You just simply go to our website under the monthly webinar series and actually bring that up for you, and you can see a list of all recorded webinars and presentations for the other Denali modules and other functions that you may be doing. A lot of these are specific to the function that you're going to be working with in Denali. So, for example, W-2 year-end, there's a good one. General ledger account setup, save time and money with Denali. These are categorized for the specific categories that you need. So, some great resources there you can get there on our website. And if you go straight to the website, you'll find that under the resources menu here under webinars. All right, so with that, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for your time, and that concludes our presentation. Oh, that wasn't hard, huh?